In the course of what I do for Coaching to the Next Level, we're an organization that coaches and consults with churches, even nonprofits and private secular entities, doing leadership training and whatnot. But in that course, I had the chance to do kind of a secret shopper on this past Easter. I got to visit a wonderful church and do an evaluation. And the evaluation I submitted, I think, hit the pastor and the board of elders a little hard because they, in their words, said, we really want to be about reaching the unchurched, to reaching the lost. And what I observed is that they were actually very internally focused. And I think that's a struggle that most churches deal with. And the reason why I think is captured by an attitude that Mike revealed to me as we were talking in our conversation. He was opening up and he was expressing some frustration about a lady who was a recent convert, if you will. So she was newly unchurched, and he said about her, man, she still drops the F-bomb, and gosh, just the last week she showed up at church with a Deadpool T-shirt, and I think he said something to the effect of, "Doesn't she get it?" And I'm thinking, well, I'm wondering if she's not the one who doesn't get it. I think what Mike was expressing was his discomfort with messy people. And I'm thinking, but that's church. That's what it's about. I mean, if you look at the heart of Jesus, that was his heart. He walked towards the messes, to borrow a phrase from Andy Stanley. Even looking at kind of a big cosmic sense, he left his perfection to enter into our messiness, into our brokenness, into our yuck, our muck, and our mire. I mean, he's walking down the street and he looks up in the tree and there's the short dude, Zacchaeus, right? But Zacchaeus is not the guy I think we portray him out in Sunday school to the kiddos, right? And the flannel graph stuff. This dude was not a nice guy. He was wicked. He exploited people. He just used and abused them, all for his own gain. He lived high on the hog because of the suffering of his neighbors. And Jesus says, Zach, I'm coming to your house. He walked toward the mess. Even the woman at the well, who I think was jumping from relationship to relationship, trying to find a sense of identity or self-worth, she was broken. And you know the story. Despite all of the cultural faux pas, he walked towards the mess. The woman caught in adultery, he could have said, just like the religious leaders of the time who hauled her in across the courtyard, he could have said, yeah, you know what? I have nothing to do with this. It's too messy. Stone her, do what the law says. But no, he engaged and he walked toward the mess. That's one of the things that has really struck me in reading our material, especially Lyons. Lyons says this. He says this restoration mindset. Jesus wanted to restore Zacchaeus. He wanted to restore the woman who was at the well, restore her sense of self-worth, not self-worth, but God-worth. He wanted to restore the woman caught in adultery. It's like wanting to find her identity in relationships or men, and he wanted to restore that. He also wanted to restore, I think, a sense of mercy in the crowd that had surrounded her with stones. But that's what Lyons, he talks about, that this restorative mindset guided Jesus' entire ministry. He was driven to be present in the darkest and most corrupt places of his culture, to extend his own holiness, love, grace, peace, and purity to others in creative, redemptive, and ultimately self-sacrificial ways. This is why God became a man in Jesus Christ. God's holiness did not prevent him from entering our messy depravity. It provoked him to show up. On the very next page, Lyons speaks of provoked Christians. And he says, provoked Christians resist judging non-Christians. Anecdotal research suggests that offended Christians have held those who never claimed to follow Jesus to a standard they haven't signed up for. They expect non-Christians to conform to the same moral code as a Christ follower, which is crazy. My first round with college back in the day in youth ministries, I forgot the name of the book, but it was the big one of the day. And the author wrote, as parents, we shouldn't be surprised when our kids act sinfully because they're born sinners. Just like people who are don't have a redemptive relationship with Jesus yet, they're simply acting naturally. So I wonder why we get in this place where we're, maybe as Lyons puts it, we want to separate ourselves from the messiness of the world, but that's not the heart of Jesus. I look at Luke 15, and what's he doing? He's telling you stories about this is the kingdom of God. This is what the heart of my Father is like, and it's always pursuing after, going after, seeing value in things, and stopping at nothing to get those things. And those things are us, the people, his children. And as I was interacting with Lyons and the content there, it reminded me of Andy Stanley's book, Deep and Wide. And Andy, speaking of the early church, he said this. He said, in the beginning, the church was a gloriously messy movement with a laser-focused message and a global mission. But then he describes how the church has changed, and I think that is reflective of maybe a little bit of Mike's attitude. Andy said, we were against just about everything at one time or another. We were against certain genres of music, alcohol, the lottery, the Equal Rights Amendment, gay people, and Democrats. Seemed like we were always looking for something or someone to boycott. As strange as all that sounds now, it didn't seem strange at all back then. Funny how time does that. But our dilemma then is a dilemma the church has struggled with throughout its history. Who is the church for? Who gets to be part of the Jesus gathering? And if we look at the heart of Jesus, then the church is for those who are lost. The messy people, kind of like us. And so as I was interacting with this, I paused because Mike is an intelligent guy. I don't think he intends to have discontinuity with his words and his actions. And it made me realize that we all have such blinders on. And so I paused and I prayed and asked God, please reveal to me my own blinders, because I know I have them. Everybody has them. Please reveal those to me, because I want to have the heart of Jesus. And I want to continually walk toward the mess.